time for the best coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
Indeed it does, and good to have you with us on this Wednesday edition of the show. A lot to do over the next 60 minutes. We got a PGA Championship preview coming up. There is some interesting news on the baseball front involving Pete Rose and Shoeless Joe Jackson. Commissioner Rob Manfred making a big decision on Tuesday. We'll dive into that, the NHL playoffs, and a whole bunch more. But let's dive right into the NBA playoffs with our friend Kurt Helin of Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com, who hangs out with us every Wednesday on the show. Let's not waste any time, Kurt. And boy, the Indiana Pacers didn't waste any time either. They made it quick and pretty painless. They finish off the Cleveland Cavaliers in Cleveland last night in 5 games. And look, is this just a situation where it was bad timing for injuries for the Cavaliers? Is it the Pacers peaking at the right time? We talk about it in the NFL all the time. It's when you're peaking, or the Pacers just simply peaking at the right time? Is it a combination of the two? How do you sort of in the post-mortem here for the Cavaliers, how do you sort of analyze what we've seen with the Pacers moving on to the Eastern Conference Finals for a second straight year?
I think there's 2 parts to that. One is the Pacers are just good, and we kind of underestimate them. They are a legitimately good two-way team. You don't make it to the Eastern Conference Finals back-to-back years because you're lucky. Right? Like you are legitimately good. Tyrese Halliburton is not overrated. More importantly, like Miles Turner has stepped up and was the most physical big in this series. He was tougher most of the time than Jared Allen inside. Plus he was hitting some threes. Their role players stepped up. But I think if I'm the Cavs, here's what worries me. And you're going to look at the situation if you're Cleveland and think, man, we won 42 games. Injuries hit us, right? And there is something that Darius Garland playing through that turf toe. Donovan Mitchell was the best player on that floor for the first half, but he couldn't sustain it through that ankle injury. He started to wear down. And you can just say injuries got to us. We tweaked this thing, and we come back. But Ty Jerome really wasn't that good in this series. And Hunter wasn't that good. And more importantly, they got outworked every night, or virtually every night. They were out-toughed, out-physically. They're physically pushed around every night by a Pacers team that isn't the most physical of teams. Underrated, but again, not the most physical of teams. If I'm the Cavs, I've got to take a step back and think about how I'm making this thing work. And by the way, second apron's coming for them. Like they're not going to be able to keep Ty Jerome and Hunter this summer probably. They are probably going to have to cut one of them and make some other tweaks on the fringes to stay within reason. And I think because of, and a whole nother topic with the Tatum injury, they probably try to run it back largely, but they've got to find some grit because they didn't show any in this playoffs.
What does it say about Rick Carlisle? I mean, we talk about the great coaches in this game. We talk about Eric Spoelstra. Obviously, Greg Popovich, who's now stepped away, obviously, and taken a front office role following his medical issues. We talk about Ty Lue and the job he's done and his coaching prowess. We talk about the great coaches of the game. Do we skip over Rick Carlisle too many times?
A little bit. Look, he is one of the best X's and O's minds in the game. He is a brilliant X's and O's coach who's a little gruff and hasn't always connected with players, but it's working with this group. He's putting them in good positions, and he has learned how to maybe connect with younger players a little better, or at least set up a situation where that works. But his X's and O's mind just puts them, like, he looked at this roster and knew what they needed and knew how to get them in spots, and they did run past, the Cavs in this series.
Yeah, they certainly did. Is there any reason when you talk about the Final Four teams that are going to be, in this NBA postseason, and obviously they're the first to punch their ticket. The Knicks are obviously on the precipice of doing that, as are the Warriors, and we'll get to the Thunder and the Nuggets here in just a moment. Is there any reason that you would pick against the Pacers when you look at this Final Four?
Not as set up. Assuming that they're going to play the Knicks, that's a 50-50 series. That is a toss-up series. I know Knicks fans are now like, have you seen your reaction? Oh, my God, have you seen us the way Brunson is playing? Pacers have played them well over the last couple of years. It is a fascinating X's and O's matchup, but it's much more even than people think. Because, again, I think people sleep a little on the Pacers. That's going to be a 6 or 7 game
Slugfest
series. Yeah, slugfest. I don't know if it's a slugfest. Well, the Knicks will want to make it a slugfest, and the Pacers will want to get out and run, and that'll be part of the story. But like, it's going to be a fun series.
It is.
But I think, look, they legitimately have a chance to reach the finals now. Like they have a legitimate chance, which is not something I thought going into the playoffs.
Tell me how Michael Porter is taking your last 2 shots in a game where he can't throw the ball in the ocean. He could barely lift his arm up above his shoulder, Kurt. And you just had Nikola Jokic hit some pirouette 3. And he's having the best game of the series, at least since the first game of the series. How is Michael Porter taking the 2 biggest shots of the series for the Denver Nuggets? You've got to make it make sense to me, because I can't in that Game 5 loss last night.
And nobody else. I mean, that's the stat. In the fourth quarter, Jokic had 13 points, 4 of 6. Every other Nugget in the fourth combined 1 of 15. In fact, every other Nugget, when you start from the point that they were up by, I think it was 12 or 13, middle of the third, they were 2 of 24. The rest of the guys did not show up, but that is a team that has been there before and believes those guys will make plays, and so they're going to get ball to the open man. The Thunder have done a good job of just making Jokic work for it, make him play in a crowd, make it a little bit difficult, keep throwing different looks at him, and dare any other Nuggets player to beat them. Aaron Gordon's done it a little bit, but they can't do it consistently. And Porter's pain tolerance is through the roof, dude. Like, I don't know how he is still out there. You watch him lift his arms and he winces. Like, it's just bad. But he's the guy. They've done a good job. Like, all right, make him make the shot. Make anybody beat us that's not Jokic, and it's working. And by the way, credit to the Thunder. They have proven they can win the gritty games.
Yes.
They've learned maybe in this series, learned how to win gritty, tough, physical, grinding playoff games in a way they didn't really have to in the regular season because they just overwhelmed everybody.
Yeah, they have. And by the way, I think this gets back to Oklahoma City for Game 7. I think that series winds up.
I would not be surprised. Yeah. By the way, with that series, we deserve a Game 7, Jason.
I agree.
Absolutely. It has been the best series, NBA or NHL, second round. Like, it has just been phenomenal. And I need a Game 7.
Yeah, I need a Game 7 in that series as well. Speaking of gritty, I like to get on the T-Wolves and Anthony Edwards at times. They've been gritty as well. I want to talk about them coming up here in a couple minutes. We'll also get to the Knicks and the Celtics and what has been a pretty wild series and what we saw the other night with Jayson Tatum and how that changes the fortunes of the Celtics, not just now, but in the offseason and in the 2025-2026 campaign. We'll get to that more with Kurt Helin to do next. All right, let's continue the conversation on the NBA with Kurt Helin of Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com. He joins us every week here on the show, Talk NBA. All right, Knicks and Celtics. Good luck making sense of this. I've gone through so many twists and turns emotionally watching this series, and you've been in the group chat with me and our buddy Vlad.
First off, credit to Jalen Brunson for being the best player in this series. With Tatum, with everything that the Celtics bring, Brunson has clear and away been the best player in this series and deserves all the plaudits for it.
Well, but I said when they were up 2-1, and it felt like all the momentum was back with the Celtics. The one argument I made for the Knicks was Brunson had not still had that Brunson game yet. He had not had that moment, that game where he just went off. And the Knicks had not had really that game. The Knicks played 3 games that were all virtually the same. And it was the Celtics who elevated their game in Game 3. And then in Game 4, the Knicks played a second half where they really elevated their game. And Brunson in particular really stepped up and played at a different level. And they go on to win. And they win that game whether or not Tatum gets hurt. Regardless of whether Tatum gets hurt, they're winning that game. It's just a question of what happens the remainder of the series. And now, obviously, with Tatum hurt, the Celtics are up against it. And while it looks like the Knicks are going to move on to the conference finals, nothing is a foregone conclusion the way this thing is gone. And I think the Celtics are going to come out and really come out swinging in Game 5. I expect them to come out swinging in Game 5, knowing that it's probably their last chance. What happens to this Celtics team now, knowing that Tatum's probably gone for most, if not all, of next season? Where do the Celtics go here, Kurt?
Yeah, they have to consider punting next season. They already were going into this offseason. The buzz around the league was, especially with the ownership change, they were going to be selling a rotation player or two and looking to get their salary cap number down, because they were they're $20 million into the second apron already. Like, they're just deep in. They've got to find a way to lower numbers. They've got to find a way to bring it back. And so it was already thought that Drew Holiday might be available, or maybe a Derek White, or Porzingis is a name you hear, although I don't know how much you can get for him the way he's played and the injuries and everything. But that, there are players out there that up-and-coming teams like a Houston or San Antonio might have and the teams with assets might have real interest in picking up. Now you've got to consider punting next season. Hey, do you want to keep Jaylen Brown? Or is it time to move on from the Brown? I mean, these are the conversations they need to have. I can guarantee you, like, Sam Hauser's probably not back. I'd be shocked if Al Horford's back, and they will move on from one of White and or Holiday, but they could make bigger sweeping moves than that. Porzingis, they would probably be interested in moving, and Jaylen Brown moving on for the right package is not off the table. Probably doesn't happen, because in 2 years you're going to be back and you could try to make it happen. I mean, Tatum's only 27. He's going to be 29. He's still going to be in the middle of his prime when he returns. Healthy, in not next season, but the 26-27 season.
But who knows what he comes back as off of this injury?
Yeah,
we've seen what guys come back from this injury. Outside of Kevin Durant, who's come back from this injury? Yeah. But I can point to a lot of guys who've come back from this and not been Kevin Durant.
Right, and he's younger. It's a little tougher to judge, because like Klay Thompson wasn't the same, although he had the ACL too. But Thompson was older. Everybody's been older, right? Like, it hasn't been guys in their prime. So even if you get back peak Tatum, this team isn't going to look the same in 2 years. They're going to have to restructure it. And fire sale is the wrong word. That's not how it's going to be, because they know they've got to keep a core together, and they're going to be good next year, just not probably contender good without Tatum. But what's this thing going to look like? How far are they going to strip it back? Because the financial thing that's hitting them and hitting Cleveland, it's going to hit hard. And like I said, I expect big, bold moves this offseason. Expect them to really shake this thing up, especially if they can if you can deal with Houston and get some of their young, more affordable talent, or maybe San Antonio, and you can get someone like Castle, like you can really make this work.
Is there any chance Tatum plays at all next year, or would they just say we're gonna mothball him for next year?
Tatum plays through everything. He is up there with, LeBron's been durable.
Yeah, I know.
And so if he's that durable and wants to, him being back for the end of the regular season, maybe the last month and the playoffs, isn't out of the question. But like you said, when you come back from that injury, it's still a ramp-up process for everybody that's not Adrian Peterson or somebody. Everybody else has to ramp up. So I think if you're the Celtics, you still have to look at next year as a gap year, and anything you get out of that is good.
We talk grit and toughness when we talk about the Oklahoma City Thunder. We have to have that same conversation about the Timberwolves, because the Warriors without Curry have had to do everything they can to muck up this series and just sort of play it in the trenches for 48 minutes. And the Timberwolves have been able to do that. And it hasn't been pretty, and you knew it wasn't going to be, but the Timberwolves have done that through the first 4 games of this series, and they're on the verge of closing this out and getting through it without Curry ever getting back on the floor. What have we learned about the Timberwolves through this process?
Again, it's sort of like the Pacers, right? Hey, they made the conference finals last year, but that's not going to happen again. No, they're better than we think they are. And especially after the Towns trade, it took so long for this team to find its rhythm, to find its identity again, but it has found it now, especially defensively. They've started to really kind of pull the thing together with Rudy out. people like to bag at him, but like he's been good. He has been able to make plays. Anthony Edwards is figuring out how to be the face and best player on a championship level team. They've got the right veterans around them, but they're so big. They are so long. They are so athletic that it's going to make an interesting series against, if it's them and OKC. Like they are built to at least trouble OKC. They have the defense to at least trouble OKC some and put some long athletic guys on Shea. What we've learned is that they're not only gritty and well coached. This is just a well-built team. This is a well-built, well-constructed NBA team.
Well, we'll see how it all plays out. I'm out of time. I'm going to ask you some bonus questions that people can watch on our YouTube channel, SportsWrap with Jayson Page YouTube channel. I'm going to ask you a couple of bonus questions that people are going to have to go to there. That is what we call a tease in the business. Kurt Helin, Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com. Check out his work there. Always appreciate you, my friend. Thank you.
Oh, anytime, buddy.
We're coming back. More to do on this show. Pete Rose, Shoeless Joe reinstated next. Welcome back to Sports Wrap on this Wednesday. Big news came down on Tuesday. Our first chance to react to it on this show. Rob Manfred, Commissioner of Major League Baseball, making the announcement that he was ending the lifetime ban of a few former Major League Baseball players, namely Pete Rose and Shoeless Joe Jackson, for their roles in various gambling, sports betting controversies. And look, this is something we've talked about a lot on this show, really since the inception of this show in various forms. Sam Yarnell hangs out with us on the program today, as he does just about every day. And Sam, look, here's my take on this whole thing. And it goes something like this. First of all, too little, too late, Rob Manfred. You could have done this while Pete Rose was still alive, and he would have had at least a chance for Hall of Fame voters to make a decision on whether or not he should be voted in to the Hall of Fame, which we'll get to in a second. Because here's what's changed between yesterday's decision and 18 months ago when Pete Rose is still alive. Absolutely nothing. Nothing's changed. Nothing's changed in the decision that Rob Manfred has made. And here's why I say that. Pete Rose is dead. He can't manage. Pete Rose is dead. He can't be a general manager. He can't be a first base coach. He can't be a scout. He can't have any involvement in Major League Baseball. He's dead. Nothing's changed in Pete Rose's role in Major League Baseball from yesterday to 18 months ago when the man was still alive. Nothing's changed. And now it just goes, now the onus shifts from Major League Baseball to the Baseball Writers Association of America, which still has a bunch of old timers who still think that, we'll leave the Baseball Writers Association of America alone, because there are a lot of things we could do. Because I still see plenty of them who have like food dribbling down their BBWAA card. All right,
that's enough.
All right.
That's enough.
We still see we've seen them all in press boxes at baseball games. Bless their hearts. Bless their hearts, who haven't written anything in 30 years, but still somehow have a vote on what goes into the Hall of Fame and what doesn't go into the Hall of Fame. We still see them today. Nothing's changed. So to me, Rob Manfred could have done this 18 months ago while Pete Rose was still alive and at least given him the opportunity to make his case to the writers, to politic to the writers, whereas now he doesn't have the opportunity to do that because he's 6 feet under. So to me, it was the cowardice act by Rob Manfred to do this now. And we'll see what the baseball writers ultimately elect to do. But I don't think anything's going to change. I don't think Pete Rose is getting into the Hall of Fame regardless, Sam.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that changed, Jason Page, and the reason that this all happened is because the thing that changed is the Heat got turned up on Rob Manfred. And what happens literally every time the Heat gets turned up on Rob Manfred? He jumps to make a decision that ultimately ends up hurting baseball. I'm not saying this is one of those, and I don't. Again, this is so hard for people to understand when people are asking me what my take on it was yesterday. I really don't care as long as they decide something. Like, as long as it was figured out. I never saw Pete Rose play, right? My grandfather tells me stories about watching Pete Rose. He didn't even see Shoeless Joe play, right? So my big thing with this was always, if Major League Baseball is going to do it, they have to make sure that if they remove Pete Rose from the ineligible list, they have to take that entire Black Sox team, which thankfully they did. But I will say that this all was born out of the media. I don't want to say hype and I don't want to say circus because neither word is reflective of what it was. But the media pressure seemingly on Rob Manfred to recognize Pete Rose for the legend that he was during his time in Major League Baseball. To me, coupled with the fact that Rob Manfred in this new era of baseball for the last, let's be conservative and say 3 years, has been deeply in bed with all of these major gambling companies, raised a couple of red flags. And he started to feel the pressure and jumped to a decision that I personally don't think he had to make.
I agree with you. But I think ultimately there wasn't. I think the ultimate thing that pushed him over the edge was the relationship with all these sports. If they weren't in bed with sports betting, I don't think he ever makes this decision. I don't think he ever makes this decision if not for the fact that Major League Baseball is in bed with sports betting, that you cannot escape a Major League Baseball game now without some form of sports betting coming across your screen, whether it be a commercial, whether it be a live betting line, whether it be, some, hey, check out this special parlay. You can't escape it. So I don't think Rob Manfred could have escaped his tenure as the commissioner of Major League Baseball without having made a decision on this. But all he's done now is punt it to the writers. Do you think the writers, as I believe the writers will not vote him in, do you think the writers will vote him in? I don't think they do. Because if they're not putting in Bonds, if they're not putting in Clemens, if they're not putting in McGuire, if they're not putting in Sosa, they're not putting in Pete Rose. And I also think they're going to hold it against him, the fact that all those years he went up to Cooperstown and stole the spotlight, in their opinion, from those that were getting inducted when he'd sit there and sign baseballs right around the corner from Cooperstown in the Hall of Fame.
So there are a couple of things here, right? The first thing is they're not even going to be on the ballot until 2027. There will be somewhat of a different class of voters in 2027 than there are now, just because that's how it works. The BWAA shifts it around every couple of years, and the class will be different.
Bert and George will still be sitting there with their old cards going.
But my concern is this, Jason. How many of these writers voting in 2027 are as familiar as they should be, right, with a player who played in the 1980s and then a player who played in the 19 teens? Furthermore, right, they're competing now on that ballot with players who those writers did watch in person. The steroid era guys thing is interesting to me because I think a more valid comparison would be like them voting in Bonds, McGuire, and Clemens the year that Major League Baseball does a deal with some bionics company that is making humans stronger illegally.
I think
under the pretenses of baseball.
I ultimately think all the steroid guys are going to get in, by the way. All the PED guys are going to get in eventually. It may not be for another 10, 20 years. Eventually, all those guys are going to get in as well. And it might be through the Veterans Committee or whatever it's called these days that Rose and Shoeless Joe eventually get in as well. It just might not be through the typical writers. We're coming back. Lots more to do. Don't go anywhere. Let's take it to segment 4 on this Wednesday edition of the show. Coming up in 10 minutes, we preview the PGA Championship. Or what should be the Rory McIlroy Invitational. We'll see. Why are you shaking your head, Sam
He's not
Yardell?
even a favorite.
Wow. he's pretty damn close. He's the second best odds to win. And he has dominated at this course.
He has done that.
Talking about Quail Hollow. So Sam Yarnell, let's talk some hockey here, as the Dallas Stars have pushed the Winnipeg Jets to the brink with a winning Game 4, take a 3-1 series lead in that best-of-7 Western Conference semifinal series. And look, I mean, we've seen it in the East with the Capitals, and now we see it in the West with the Stars, doing what they've done here against the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, and I mean, Jason, this is last night seemed like it was an exact perfect example of everything that we talked about and that we talked about with Dennis yesterday on the show.
Dennis Bernstein, of course, yes.
Yes, Dennis Bernstein, our friend from the fourth period in Sirius XM NHL radio. Mikael Granlund in this game going off for a hat trick, I don't think anybody saw coming.
Nope.
But what did I say yesterday about this Dallas Stars team? They've got the performance from Mikko Rantanen. If they can get those guys around him going, which they've done, this team in the Dallas Stars is turning into a buzzsaw. Now, I know it's the Winnipeg Jets and everyone's going to talk about the curse of the President's Trophy and yada, 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 yada. Whatever. The fact of the matter is this. Jake Ottinger has been a beast in this series. Connor Hellebuck again faltering on the road.
Hasn't won on the road in this postseason. It's remarkable. It really is. And there have been chants. I know there were chants when he gave up some goals in Dallas. It must have been last game. There was chants of U.S. backup. I think the Winnipeg crowd and the Dallas crowd have been going back and forth because Ottinger and Hellebuck are the two goalies for the U.S. national team. Again, like we talked about with Dennis yesterday. But Ottinger has simply outperformed him so far in this series. And it'll be interesting to revisit that conversation when we approach Olympic competition as to who will be the starter, because it's obviously going to be someone from this series. But who will it be? If you had to pick on just this series alone, it's Ottinger six times out of 7. But Jason, again, this Stars team, they're playing well around their stars. And that is really something that is going to propel them to being a Stanley Cup contender. I might like them over the Oilers. I look, as much as I give Dennis grief for how badly he got it wrong with Edmonton and Las Vegas, because he loved the Golden Knights in that series, and we've seen what Edmonton has done there. He said it about the Stars that if they got through that opening round series, he thought they were dangerous to make a run potentially to the Cup Finals, and they obviously have a chance to do that now. But I wonder now, and look, we're going through this autopsy in the NBA, and Kurt and I talked about it, sort of with the Cavaliers and the Celtics and what they're going to have to do in the offseason in terms of revisiting, sort of and reshaping and in some cases maybe not reshaping. I don't think the Cavaliers are going to do all that much. I think they're going to run it back with most of what they had this year and say, hey, we're not going to have Garland get injured and Mitchell get injured next year so late in the season. What do you do in the case of the Capitals? What do you do in the case of Winnipeg? Do you run it back with this same group next year? That's something they're going to have to ask themselves.
Well, Winnipeg's interesting, right? But with the Capitals, you don't have another choice. You only have a select few number of years left with the greatest goal scorer of all time on your roster.
You got one left. That's it.
Right. Well, that's if he doesn't renew, right? I am not writing off that possibility. I refuse to write it off that next year is going to be his last year farewell tour.
Could be right.
Regardless, the Capitals, as long as he's on that roster, Jason, they have no choice, but they got to keep going for it. They have to keep mortgaging the future on the present because, quite frankly, it's the respect that you have to give as an organization to the, again, greatest goal scorer of all time.
All right. So we got tonight. Who wins? Who's going? Is Vegas going home? Do they at least get this thing back to Edmonton for a Game 6? I think they do. I'd be surprised if they didn't figure out a way to get this back to Edmonton for a Game 6, make them win it on their home ice. Florida and Toronto, obviously a pivotal Game 5. We talked about it yesterday on the show. A must-win for the Maple Leafs, considering we have a lot more confidence in Florida. To get a win in Game 6, if it comes down to that. What do you think happens tonight, Sam?
Well, I'll tell you what, I have more confidence in the Maple Leafs than I do the Golden Knights, which is interesting because the Maple Leafs are dogs and the Golden Knights are favorites. I like the Oilers in this spot. I think the Golden Knights have let that questionable goalie situation for Edmonton get hot in multiple ways, which is like the worst thing that you want to do. And let's be clear again. 27, Leon Draisaitl, Connor McDavid, not playing their best game so far in this series. That is bound to change at some point, and I think it's probably tonight. Give me the Oilers tonight. The other game, I can't pick a winner, Jason. I thought
think
Panthers
Toronto
coming
wins.
in. Then I was thinking about what Dennis said to us yesterday, and I was like, listen, the Panthers don't have as much to play for. I know it's the playoffs. Everyone's got something to play for. But in this game specifically for series leverage, the Panthers do not have as much to play for as the Maple Leafs do. So if I were a betting man, which I am, I'd probably put money on the Maple Leafs. But I'm not touching that game, man.
Maple Leafs
there's
plus
a chance it's
118.
5-2 either way.
Give me a desperate Maple Leafs team at plus 118 at home. I think I like that one. That's the only one I have a lot of confidence in. I have no confidence in the Golden Knights. I think the Golden Knights will win, but I wouldn't put my money on it. I wouldn't put your money on it. I wouldn't even put Dennis Bernstein's money on it at this point. All right, let's come back, talk some golf, preview the PGA Championship. It's next. All right, coming up in 10 minutes, odds and ends. Some more leaking of the NFL schedule release. By the time you watch this show, for some of you watching on television, depending on where the show is aired, various affiliates aired at different times, the full schedule may already be out. But we will have full coverage of the schedule release on Thursday for the NFL. So you'll want to check out the show tomorrow, obviously, for full coverage of that. Matt Verderam will hang out with us from SI, their NFL insider. All right, Sammy Arnell, we've got the PGA Championship in full effect. Rain has screwed up practice for these guys throughout the entire week. But look, Quail Hollow is, of course, all of these guys are familiar with because there's a PGA Tour event held there every year. So you've got the PGA Championship being held at Quail Hollow. This has been Rory McIlroy's personal playground in recent years. He's played very well at this course, which is why he is one of the top picks when you look at the odds for this year's event. We'll have you give your picks in odds and ends. But, you know, when we sort of look at this year's event, Scotty Scheffler, obviously, playing fantastic golf coming into this event, sort of building up. Remember, he had the slow start to the season because of the hand injury, the freakish hand injury that he suffered. The sort of slow build going into this event, the record-setting performance that he had a couple of weeks back. Now, leading into this, you've got Rory, who's the second favorite leading into this, and then Bryson DeChambeau, and then you have a bit of a drop-off, with John Rahm, Xander Schauffele, Justin Thomas, a who's who, obviously, with the second major of the season in golf.
Yeah, Jason, and like you said, this is a field of golfers with a ton of not only familiarity with this course, but medal at this course, right? We've got a lot of trophies from Quail Hollow in the field. I mean, you mentioned Justin Thomas. That's a guy who won the PGA Championship when it was held at Quail Hollow. We've talked about so much to seemingly no end about how much success Rory has had at this course. Jordan Spieth, I believe, is the guy who holds the record, the course record at this course, right? So this is a course that is very gettable when it's in pristine condition. Now, the interesting thing is, as you mentioned, they've gotten a lot of rain to the point where they had to cancel practices, to the point where I don't think the course is in necessarily the exact condition that everyone would be expecting it to be. I say that because we've seen the line be posted for the overall winning score, and I believe it's in the neighborhood of 273 or 274 and a half, 14 to 15 strokes under par. So that's telling you that the sports book is expecting, I believe, juice to the over on that as well. The book is telling you that they're expecting the winner only to shoot about 13, 14 over par, or under par, excuse me. That's a similar under par score to what you win the Masters with, right? So it seems to me that people are expecting this course in Quail Hollow to play pretty difficult, even though it's one that, again, this field has seemingly limitless familiarity and domination over.
7,600 yards, and it's going to play even longer because of the rain. And that's why I look at a guy like Bryson DeChambeau, who's driving the ball as well. And I don't care if it's live golf, if it's the PGA Tour. Bryson DeChambeau is driving the ball as well as anybody in the world right now. And you give me him on a course that's been rained on at 7,600 yards. I think the long hitters are going to, have a bit of an advantage this week, because if you're one of these short hitters, if you're one of these guys that doesn't hit it a long way, you're not going to get any roll. It's going to go, and it's just going to sit there. I wonder if because of the rain, because it's supposed to rain through today. I think that even today they were talking about a 70% chance of rain out there. I wonder if by the time they get to Thursday, if in that opening round, they're going to be talking about lift, clean, and place out there, Sam, and what kind of an impact that might even have on the opening round scoring.
Yeah, that would be crazy.
Wouldn't be shocking, though.
It wouldn't. I mean, so then you talk about guys who have, you're talking about looking to try and place wagers on guys who have had famously one-round success, or who are incredibly hot coming in the first round, right? So then you're talking about like a Sepp Straka, who just won the Truist Championship in Philadelphia, talking about guys of that ilk. I do think that's interesting, Jason, but at the same time, to me, and again, I'm quite young in my golf fandom, but to me, the PGA doesn't generally do that unless the conditions are horrible. And for them to do that in a major championship, I would be very surprised. And the reason I say that is something
you
that
don't
actually
want guys
draws...
hitting mud balls, though, Sam. You don't want guys hitting mud balls out there.
If they do, that plays directly into the favor of who, Jason? Bryson DeChambeau, because not only is he hitting the ball far, which, yes, will probably at the end of the day collect a little more mud, Bryson DeChambeau is one of the better mud ball hitters. I know that's not necessarily something that we can track incredibly accurately, but just because of his raw strength, because of his understanding of physics and the science that goes into golf, it makes Bryson DeChambeau one of the best mud ball hitters on the tour. So in those adverse conditions, if that is going to be something that plays a factor through all 4 days of the tournament, I would give an edge then to Bryson DeChambeau. And that's a guy who has taken sharp action in Las Vegas over the course of the last 5 or 6 days, we'll say. He was 12-1 going into last weekend, 7-1 at most houses live.
You want a couple of long shots to look at? Watch Patrick Reed, 90-1. He finished third at the Masters.
You love Patrick Reed.
I don't love Patrick Reed as a human being, but I love Patrick Reed as a long shot at 90-1, and I like money more than I like Patrick Reed. Give me Jason Day, 3 top 10s this year, 8th at the Masters. It's another guy worth looking at. And I'll always say Michael Kim, because he's great on social media. Sam will have his picks and odds and ends, which is next. Just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Wednesday. Don't forget, on Thursday's show, we'll be joined by our friend David Ardsman, his weekly MLB spot. The former reliever hangs out with us, talk about the top stories around baseball. I'll be curious to see what he thinks on the Pete Rose story, too. He's anti-Rose getting into the Hall of Fame. He has been in the past, but I'll be curious to see what he makes of this news. We'll also be joined by Matt Verderam. SI does a great job on the NFL, one of their insiders. Talk to him about the NFL schedule release, which has been coming out in dribs and drabs. One of the latest dribs coming out. We'll get to that coming up in just a couple of moments. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page podcast. If you have not checked it out, make sure to go and subscribe. You can listen to the show every day while you're driving to work, while you're on the treadmill, while you're in bed, whatever you're doing. Make sure to go and subscribe to the podcast. Available on all your favorite podcasting platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Odyssey, Amazon, anywhere you get a podcast. You can also watch this show in places other than your television. Broadcast, cable, 220 affiliates plus across the United States and Canada. You can also watch the show on Spotify. You can also watch the show on our YouTube channel, on the SportsWrap with Jayson Page YouTube channel. It's fantastic. We have the show up there every afternoon for you. You can also watch our SportsWrap shorts, which includes clips from the show and clips not from the show, meaning sometimes news breaks after we've already put the show out to the affiliates. And you can watch those clips on our SportsWrap with Jayson Page YouTube channel. All right, all of that out of the way. Ladies and gentlemen, time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends, Sam Yarnell. I said there was a latest drib in the NFL schedule release. Now, by the time some of you watch this, the entire schedule may be out. We'll have a full recap of that on Thursday's show. Cowboys and Chiefs, part of the NFL schedule reveal. They will meet up on Thanksgiving. And this is a curious one for me, Sam, because you can put that game on anywhere and it's going to get a huge number. Why put it on Thanksgiving? I could have said the same thing with regard to the Eagles and Cowboys playing on opening night. Why put that game on opening night? It's going to do a huge number no matter where you put it with division rivals. But there you go. The NFL in its infinite wisdom deciding to put the Cowboys and Chiefs on Thanksgiving.
So I actually think there's a little bit more of a layer here to this, because if you'll remember back to about the middle of last season, maybe the latter half of last season, the Chiefs petitioned the NFL to be... They wanted to be on Christmas. They wanted to play on Christmas every single year. They wanted to make Christmas the Chiefs' Day because the Chiefs are America's team and we all always want to watch them because the Chiefs are the best, at least in Clark Hunt's mind. So to me, I think the NFL took that, said, no. See, you don't decide who plays when. We decide who plays when. And you don't decide who gets what day. We decide who gets what day, whether it's... what are the teams that always play? The Cowboys, right? The Lions always play on Thanksgiving. And I feel like there's another one that I'm missing, but I just can't put my finger on it quite right now. Regardless, I think this is the league spitting back in the face of Clark Hunt and saying, hey, listen, buddy, you want to come out and ask us for this publicly in the media? Well, tough nuts, because now you're going to have to play on all these holidays, and it's going to give your team at least 3 short weeks during the season. And are they playing an international game this year too, Jason? Because last year, that was part of their whole tiff.
I don't know if they're playing an international game. I'll have to wait and see on that. Brian Wu. If you don't know who Brian Wu is, you should go and look him up. This guy has had a fantastic season for the Seattle Mariners. He shut down a Yankees lineup that had really been hitting well here in recent weeks. And Brian Wu, only pitcher in Major League Baseball after the Mariners beat the Yankees in extras yesterday, 2-1, to throw 6+ innings in every start this season. He has now thrown 8 starts this year of 6 innings or more, something very rare in baseball these days, Sam.
So Brian Wu is someone who is very popular among the sabermetric stat heads in Major League Baseball because the story of Brian Wu truly is a great one. He's a guy who pitched in college at Cal Poly, but didn't pitch exceedingly well. I believe he was drafted in like the 6th round or something. Not a notable draft prospect, nothing like that, but made his way through Major League Baseball, then got into professional baseball and completely reinvented his fastball. He's got one of the most dynamic fastballs in Major League Baseball, and it's been on display so far this season. This is a kid... I say kid, he's the exact same age as me. This is a guy who has completely blossomed in the professional ranks at a time where it seems like maybe in college he didn't just have the technology or the science behind him to be able to make him as effective of a pitcher as we've seen him be in the major leagues, Jason. It's truly been incredible to watch him become part of what is a generational staff in Seattle when healthy this year.
4-1, 2.84 ERA on the year for Brian Wu leading that staff. All right, final Final 25 seconds here. Who do you like for the PGA Championship, Sam Yarnell?
All right, Jason, I got 3 guys that I'm going to ride with. I'll ride with the favorite, Scotty Scheffler, Bryson DeChambeau, because he hits the ball really far, and then Justin Thomas, because I love a good story.
How are we ignoring Rory McIlroy at plus 450 when he dominates on this course, Sam? And Jordan Spieth going for the career Grand Slam. Gary Player is rooting for him. No? Nothing?
Add Jordan Spieth to my card. Jordan Spieth on my card for sure.
He's like 60 to 1. I mean, how do you not throw a shekel on Jordan Spieth? We're out of time. We got to go. Thanks to Kurt Helin for hanging out on the show. We'll see you all on Thursday. Matt Verderam, David Ardsma then. Thanks to you, Sam Yarnell. That's Sports Wrap. Have a good one.